beautiful people. Ooh, my levels look really, really suspiciously low. Are you with me? 1, 2, 1, 2. Oh, very odd. Bear with me a second. There we go. Right, now I'm way too loud. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay, is that better? Can everybody hear and see everything okay? Should have checked my mic levels before I came on as a last minute live kind of thing. So hopefully, Sebastian, everything is now actually sounding okay. So as per usual, as I all seem to do these days, this is a bit of a last minute kind of thing, but it's been a pretty busy week for me. And I kind of thought I want to do a bit of a roundup over some of the things that have happened, some of the things that have kind of come up, and I kind of think will be interesting. Now, Web Squadron, if you want to jump in with me, Imran, if you want to jump on the live stream and get involved, just let me know in the comments, and I shall send the details over. So if you want to jump in, you are more than welcome to join me. No problem at all. Okay, so like I say, this is a bit of a last minute kind of thing. I'll do some hellos in a second, but it's basically just a recap on the last week and some of the things that have kind of come to light, some of the things that have been released or due to be released. And I just thought it'd be interesting to sort of talk about these kinds of things, even some new free software that I think might be worthwhile taking a look at if you are looking for something to, get your design chops up and you don't want to use something like Photoshop or something like that. You want an online option, which looks pretty interesting. So we're going to talk about that today. I'm going to show you that. I'm not going to give you a demo of it because I need to check it out myself and try it out and see what it's like. But we all like free options. So no problem at all, Imran. We shall sort one out in the next couple of weeks. So let's take a quick look at who's in. And as always, if you do enjoy these live streams and you get value out of it, hit the thumbs up button. If you don't, well, you can hit the thumbs down button twice. That's twice, not 4 times, because that does the same thing anyway. So who do we have in today? Max, good to see you in. Thanks for joining in. Dave Den, good to see you as well. Anybody that don't know, jump over to YouTube once you finish this live stream and do a search for Dave Den and take a look at his YouTube channel. Take a look at his videos, give him a like, subscribe, and help support the great community out there of WordPress creators that are creating content absolutely free of charge so everybody can benefit from skills, knowledge, new tools, and expertise. So please do check out Dave Den's channel and have a look, get involved, subscribe, and keep up to date with what he's doing. Sebastian, good to see you in as well. David Miles, good to see you as well. Thank you for joining in. Now, I'm not going to be able to say this one, but I'll just pop you up on screen and say, hi, how are you doing? Audio should be okay now, so fingers crossed. Web Squadron or Imran, good to see you in as well. Stuart, Andrew, always a pleasure to see you as well. Now, Rituraj, I hope I said that correctly, but if not, I'll pop you up on there and say hi to you as well. Thanks for joining in today. Let's have a little look. Bricks, okay. That's interesting. Bricks has just published a video explaining the WooCommerce thing. I'll take a look at that a little later, and yeah, hopefully that is something that's been clarified a little bit, because I know a few people were a little bit put out by the response to their questions in the live stream that I did with Thomas on Wednesday. Thomas, the lead behind Bricks Builder. So that'll be interesting. I'll take a little look at that a little later. Thanks for letting me know about that. Mohammed, good to see you in as well. Thank you very much for joining. Thailand Divers, good to see you. Goran, pleasure. Jakob, hope I said that correctly. David, bring on the free plugins. Would like to see how we use Fluent snippets in Bricks and use cases. Interesting. I shall have to take a look at that. John, good to see you in as well. Daniel, thank you very much for joining. Now, Mans, hopefully I'm saying that correctly, but if not, I'm going to pop you up. If I do butcher your names, I do apologize. I will pop it up on screen. So if there's any problems, then hopefully we can clarify and you know who I'm talking about. Sam, good to see you in. I hope you're doing well. Speaking of great online content creators, creating not just for WordPress, but also for Webflow, check out Sam Harrison's channel. Go and do a little search on YouTube afterwards. So do a search for Dave Den's channel and Sam Harrison's channel and subscribe to those guys because they're doing fantastic work out there. And like I say, the more creators that we have creating content on YouTube and on their own channels and creating courses and helping educate all of us, myself included, I check out lots of channels. it's a good thing. We need to support that efforts that everybody's making. So please do check out Sam's channel. And thanks, Sam, for joining in today. It's a pleasure to see you around here. Hilton, good to see you in as well. Ruben, always a pleasure. Good morning. How are we doing, sir? Okay, so first of all, let's talk about the freebie that I'm kind of just mentioned. Now, this is a design tool. So you're sort of like your Photoshop kind of thing. Let me just get the right scene up on you a second. There we go. So this is called Modify. Now, I've only watched a couple of videos on this. I haven't tried it myself. I've just signed up. So I wanted to sort of hop on this live stream, and I'll take a look at this now over the next week or so. And also maybe create a content on it. So if you'd be interested in finding out more about Modify, do let me know. Pleasure, Sam. Pleasure, Dave Den. No problem at all. Yeah, so this does look interesting. So obviously you've got all the kind of tools you can use with like a kind of Photoshop-based editing tool. You've got AI built in there. There's all like repeating patterns and effects and things like that. So if this is something you'd like me to create a video on to sort of show just the basics of how to get started with it, do let me know in the chat. And if you're watching this on replay or on catch up, just let me know in the comments section and I'll take a look at creating something. But it does look kind of interesting what you kind of get with it. And like I say, at the moment, this is free. I don't think there's any price tag attached to this that I've seen. And hopefully this is something that will stay free with the features that you're kind of getting right now. But I believe you can do animation side of things inside here. You can do special effects. Yeah, it looks interesting. It does look pretty interesting. As we can see, if we take a look there, you can see there's a timeline kind of thing going on. So that looks pretty cool. So maybe we've got some cool animation options inside here. AI, so we've got AI options here as well for effects and an image and editing and so on. So yeah, let me know if this is something you'd be interested in taking a look at in a video, and I'll create something on it. But I'm going to be checking that out, I think, next week, taking a little look at it, taking a play about with it and see what it brings to the table and what it offers. So that's pretty cool. So yeah, check out Modify. That's Modify with a YFI.com. Take a look at that, and yeah, it'd be pretty cool. There's a good question. Okay, GQ97, why do people not create videos on Oxygen Builder? I'd say because lots of people probably got frustrated when everything changed over to Breakdance, and the way that a lot of the content creators were, should we say, disrespected a little bit by someone involved in Oxygen. So a lot of them left to go and actually start working with creating content on other tools like Bricks, GeneratePress, and other tools like that. So I think that's probably the reason why, and probably why it's primarily just Elijah now creating content, who's a kind of lead behind Oxygen, who is a genuinely nice person and does create great content for Oxygen. But I think, unfortunately, lots of people consider Oxygen to be a dying platform. Whether it is or isn't is irrelevant. A lot of people consider it to be that. And like I say, a lot of people had their noses put out of joint for various different reasons, and they've kind of moved on to other tools. Be careful, Ruben. Hey, look, I'm just saying what happened. You know, I'm not saying whether it was right or wrong or how it was handled was a positive or negative. I never really covered Oxygen, so it never affected me. But I know how several creators were unhappy with the way that things were handled. I'll just leave it at that, I think. So yeah, that's probably why you're not seeing many videos created for Oxygen Builder these days. Unfortunately, I don't think a lot of people are. I think a lot of people have moved on. Let's just leave it at that. Okay. So many tools, so little time. Absolutely. Thank you very much, Imran. I agree with what I said about Oxygen. Floyd, is Divi still worth using in 2024? To be honest, I've never really used Divi that much. I played around with it. Not the biggest fan of the interface. I think 2024 is going to see version 5 being released, so I think a lot of people are going to have to wait and see what version 5 brings to the table and how it changes things. And then maybe it's worth taking a look at what Divi will bring to the table. At this point in time, for me personally, I'd never clicked with the interface. I've always found it too many clicks, too many. You had to dig too deeply inside the interface. But some people absolutely love it. Whether I think it's worth investing your time in, honestly, I would say if you were looking to invest in any kind of tools in 2024, I don't think Divi would be my top one. I think I would be looking at Bricks. I would be looking at Breakdance. I would be taking a look at just core WordPress. Take a look at things like GreenShift, Quickly, and so on, which are more integrated heavily into the sort of core of WordPress as opposed to being a page builder that we would consider like Elementor or Bricks, those kinds of things. So that's the direction that I would go in personally. I wouldn't be looking at Divi as being my choice because I think moving from version 4 to version 5 and not knowing what that's going to bring and how good that's going to be received, I think that adds a level of uncertainty. And we'd also need to see how much better it is or how much improvement has gone on there underneath the hood to see what level of code cleanup has gone on and where they've moved over, hopefully, from the tag-based system to something that's a little bit cleaner. But personally, I wouldn't be looking at that. I'd be looking at would be Bricks. But I know that that Ruben would probably be saying, you also need to take a look at Breakdance. Up to you. I think they're going to be better tools to invest your time in, especially if you want to take time to learn and just move forward. Because when you take a look at tools like Bricks, when you take a look at tools like Quickly, GreenShift, those kinds of tools, they are probably a little bit more daunting to start off with, but you've got a much better tool set to work with. For example, like if you use Bricks, and I believe also, Quickly is bringing it in, which is something we want to talk about in a little bit. I understand Breakdance does it as well, where you've got the options to work with CSS classes, and this just speeds up everything you want to do when you want to create websites. So that's the way I would look at going. Personally, Bricks first, but like I say, some others would recommend Breakdance, Quickly, GreenShift, those types of tools. Divi wouldn't be top of my priority list. David, I have a beta of version 5 beta of Divi. It looks promising, but Bricks is still so much more flexible and powerful. David, I'd love to know, have you looked at the code and is the underlying code that's coming out, even though it's a beta, so it's not a final, does it look cleaner? Have they moved away from that horrible sort of system of using shortcodes, which is what Visual Composer used to do, and just left a load of junk behind if ever you disabled it? And have they updated the interface, or are they still sticking with the same kind of layout? I would love to know. If you've got access to the beta, what have you found? Let me know. Dave Den, Tailwind, and Quickly, who's excited for that? We're going to talk about that in a little bit. So stop jumping ahead now. I'm going to click that ban button. I'm going to tell people not to go to your channel. I'm just joking. Right, okay. As always, if you are new around here and you want to ask me a question, hashtag Q, that's hashtag Q for question. Makes my life a little bit easier to be able to find those as I'm going through and as more comments and things come in. Okay, so let's talk about the next thing that I want to talk about today, which is, well, let's have a little look. Daniel, before we go any further, one of the reasons I've moved from Breakdance to Bricks is the growing community and all the resources that came as a result, Paul, Kevin, etc., all producing great tutorials, etc. I think this is one of those things that helps make or break products. You know, that there are a lot of content being created now around Bricks, even though some people don't like the fact that I'm creating content for Bricks, which is quite funny. But anyhow, when you start to get that around it and you start to get the community build up around it, that's the thing that helps. And we talked about this, I think, earlier this week. That's one of the reasons that I believe Elementor has become so successful on so many websites. Or a part of it is that lots of people got on board and started creating content, video tutorials. Lots and lots and lots from the beginner level, you know, from people that just don't really know anything about it. They want to build a website. They've probably heard of WordPress, maybe even heard of Elementor, but don't know anything about it. There's lots of these sort of 3, 4, 5, 7, 8 hour tutorials, which, let me ask a question before I move on with that. Do you like tutorials that are like 5, 6, 7 hours long? Is that something you would actually invest your time in? You know, a free tutorial online. So let's say, for example, you know, you wanted to build a dynamic website with full listing thing. Thanks, Els, the anti-fan incarnate. Exactly. Would you watch tutorials that long? I don't want to create any that long, but I'm just curious because I see that there are several creators that create incredibly long tutorials. I'm just curious, what are your thoughts on it? Do you like that kind of format, or do you prefer smaller, bite-sized, maybe broken down into series? Let me know. I'd love to know. Let me know in the chat and in the comments if you're watching on Catch Up. But yeah, Daniel, I think that's one of the things that's really important is when you start to get, you know, a really big community around it and lots of people teaching and showing you how to do different things from beginners through to intermediate and advanced. You know, this is the thing that helps promote things. And I think that's definitely something that's happened in Bricks over the last year, 18 months, is a lot more people have come on and are creating good quality content for Bricks. So that's what I kind of think. Anyway, let's have a little look. Charlie, no. Straight into the point. That's what we like. Like I say, for me personally, I think it's too long. I don't think it would be something I would ever sit down and watch, unless it was something that I couldn't get any information anywhere else. And I was super excited and super interested in it. I just don't think I could sit down and watch that much. You know, probably not in one sitting, but just a tutorial that's that long. For me, it's like, that's hard going. Jerry, just so 30 has a tutorial coming up to 5 hours. For me, too long, but more real life bite-sized tips are needed, especially with Bricks, Dynamic Echo, etc. Yeah, that's kind of, you know, like, to be honest, 30's video was the one that kind of made me think about it then, because I seen that pop up earlier on as well. But other people do it as well. There are several content creators that create these incredibly long videos, you know, and they obviously do well. I was just curious. Like I say, for me, I couldn't imagine creating a video that long. I think the longest I've probably created is either just under or just over 2 hours. And that was hard going. Absolutely, Andrew. Unless it's Star Wars related, not a chance. Although, if it's the current crop of Star Wars stuff, I'll pass 30 minutes if I'm honest, because that just bores the living daylights out of you. David, going back to Divi, the code is much cleaner and the interface is more like Elementor and Bricks, and they are working on cleaning up all the code. I can show you a bit if you're really interested. Yeah, please do. Message me on Facebook or drop me an email. And yeah, I'd be interested to take a look at it and see what it's like. Okay. Okay. Let's have a little look. Oh, we got a thumbs down. Did I say something horrible? Is Ferdy in the audience? Right. I do wish your videos were easier to identify later in time. What tools, what subject is covered, more concrete. It's part of the reason, especially with the brick side of things, why I've created learnbricksbuilder.com, because it just means that I can organize things a little bit better. It's just going back through 800 or 900 tutorials to try to organize things now. It's just like, I don't even want to look at it. I'm just scared to look back at that. So I understand where you're coming from, Els. I do agree with you. There's definitely room for improvement. But like I said, that's the reason why I created this, because when you come to it, you've got access to your latest tutorials. You can flip through to your beginners, dynamic, CSS-related ones, or you can come to the top and things are broken down here to, again, the same kind of thing. Or you can go to the difficulty depending upon what level you are. Or if you want to look at plugins and add-ons that are specific, like, for example, core framework or advanced theme or those kinds of things. So hopefully there's much better organization of the content on there as well. And like I say, this is something that hopefully I'll roll out, because I've got some other sort of sites that I want to spin things off onto, just because it makes life a little bit easier than having everything just dumped on one site that is a catch-all, which is, unfortunately, that's what WP Tuts has kind of become. The site is kind of a catch-all. It just becomes hard work to kind of manage everything there. But also, it's another reason why, for example, if we take a look at like the CSS one over on the Learn Bricks Builder, it gives me the ability to kind of go deeper. So I think this thing's inside here. Is there code in this one? No, there's no code in this one. But if you just bear with me a second, like for example, we got the animated 404 pages. This just gives me the ability to break it down, link through to the relevant things, drop in the CSS in a nice simple format that's easy to be copied from, you know, make accessible this additional CSS code that's like lines and lines and lines and lines long. So I am working on it, Els. I am working on it, and I take the feedback on board. So I do understand. Too much ultimate guides for beginners. How many ultimates can you have? I suppose it's like game changer. It's become a term that lots of people have used. It's like, this is a game changer. Is it really? Is it really a game changer? Or is it just a cool thing that makes life a little bit easier? Okay. I can see we've got currently nearly 60 people in and 21 likes and a thumbs down, which is fine. That's no problem at all. So let's get that thumbs up on there and let's just push out that thumbs down. We don't care about them. Okay, so we're asking, what exactly is Quickly? Well, let me pull my screen up a second. Quickly is effectively, you could say, a page builder that sits on top of Gutenberg that is kind of doing things a little differently to a lot of the other tools out there. Now, I wanted to talk about this, not because I want to kind of go over what Quickly is, because I think there's already an understanding of what Quickly does, basically. But they've just released a piece of information about 1.4, which is the next release, which should come out on Monday, which has got Tailwind support. Now, Tailwind, if you've never heard of it, is a CSS framework, but it operates differently to what you'd expect from something like Core Framework or ACSS and things like that. You connect up to your Tailwind account, and correct me if I'm wrong here on any of this, but connect up to your Tailwind account, and when you actually go live, when you actually push the site live, it kind of compiles the CSS code that's being used on the Tailwind server and only outputs the code that you need. So any extraneous code that's part of the framework that you don't use in your site page design, whatever it is not compiled and not included, which means that it helps keep the size of the CSS file much smaller and optimized. So they've just come to the end of the process of integrating that. That should be released on Monday. One of the other benefits of this is with Tailwind, there's a lot of third-party design sets available. Now, I've only briefly looked into Tailwind, so I'm not really, I'm not really up on this at all. But I think what this is going to kind of help with is if you want to have the sort of wireframes or starting points, whatever it is like that, they make life a lot easier because you can just copy them from the online repository and then just paste that into your design. And with Tailwind, it operates on a mobile-first design setup. So it is optimized for mobile, will scale up to desktop and tablet and all those kinds of things in between, as opposed to being desktop first and then scale down to your mobile device. So it's kind of interesting. And I'm sort of halfway through the video that Louis released. I'll link this in the description if you want to check it out for yourself. About halfway through the video on this. And it's interesting to see the way that in which they've sort of approached it. So I think this is something that's going to help, whether you're a Tailwind user, whether you think there's life in Tailwind, it is still probably one of the most popular frameworks out there that's not specific to, just a WordPress website and connecting it up. It is much more expansive than that. So maybe not that well used inside the WordPress ecosystem. So it's interesting to sort of see where this is going, and I'd be curious to see how well this is sort of adopted. But I'll be taking a look at this. Once it's released on Monday, I will be taking a look at it and taking a look at how it operates, kind of get a feel for it. So keep an eye out for that. But if you want to check it out, check out Quickly, which I believe is just Quickly, spelt CWICLY.com. Take a little look and have a look. It is a 2-hour video, I think it is, or an hour. So you might want to skip through parts of it, but you can get a feel for what's going on with it, even if you don't want to watch the actual demonstration of how each of it piece works. Leftress, you can compile the Tailwind CSS on your site also. Even better, you kind of get the best of both worlds there, so I'm just interested to see how this all works out. Excuse me. Yeah, so it's interesting. I think this is one of the first ones that I know that have kind of gone down this route with Tailwind. I know there's a plugin that you can use Tailwind. So it's interesting to see what's going on anyway. Okay. What else do we have comment-wise? Anyway, before I do it, take a look at the comments. Have you used Quickly? Is this something you've taken a look at yourself? Have you watched this video on Quickly? Is this something that you're excited to see being integrated? Are you going to try this for yourself? Let me know in the chat. I can see that Max, I use it occasionally, but Quickly just opened itself up to a huge template market. And I think that's probably the smart move on their part. Because one of the things that I know a lot of people talk about with different tools is they want more templates, wireframe templates, starter point templates, being able to quickly and easily be able to wireframe things out and mock things up. And the fact, like you say, Max, that you've got such a established platform as Tailwind with such a ecosystem around it for that templating, and you can easily just copy that and paste it directly into the Quickly editor, I think that's going to open up a lot of people's eyes. I think it's a smart move. I do think it's a smart move. Currently, Quickly is for a more professional market. I think the problem with Quickly is that they need some really solid foundational tutorials on how to get started, how to work with it, best practices, and so on. Because I know a lot of people commented on this, and there was a thread going on their Quickly Facebook group, which is effectively saying that people want more tutorials, they want to get an understanding. And I think that's where they're lacking. And I think this is where a lot of different online tools or tools for WordPress and things like that, they're lacking. You've got some really, really powerful, comprehensive tools out there for WordPress, and they're doing themselves a disservice by not having good quality training material. Whether they do it themselves, not every company is that good at creating engaging, well thought out, well structured educational material. And this is where maybe they need to take a look at, yeah, they need me, Peter. That would be interesting. You'd be surprised how many people wouldn't pay. But I think they're missing out. That I know that a lot of people appreciated when I was working with Crocoblock, because I kind of covered a lot of the different techniques and things there. I know there's other people that are working with different brands to help explain and show how these different tools and features and things work. But if your tool goes beyond the basic kind of tool of really simplistic, you need good educational content. Some people like written, but I think more people appreciate, especially with the short attention span that we all have, it's easier to have a video of some form on screen with talking. I don't like the ones that have got subtitles, because then you kind of get a poor hybrid of visuals, which you kind of have to be drawn away to look at the text, and you can miss what's going on, little movements and things, selecting various different things that you need to see in action. I think Quickly is one of those ones that I think would absolutely benefit from some really good educational material. That's my thoughts. What do you think? Do you think any tools out there that you think they're great tools, but they're complicated and you don't really understand how to use them or to get the most from them? Let me know, and let me know what they are, because I'd be interested in finding out. Gershon, are you planning to continue more and more create tutorials of Bricks Builder? Not at the exclusion of other things. I will still be creating content on web design in general, tips and tricks, like the CSS ones that I've created. Even though I use Bricks to sort of demonstrate them, and they're on the Learn Bricks website, you can still use them without Bricks. You could use them inside Elementor. You could hand code them into whatever you want. You can use it in most things. So I'm not going to exclude other tools. I'll still cover Elementor when it's relevant, when they bring out features that I think are interesting or useful, or I think is something that I think is worth sharing. And the same goes for Generate Press, Generate Blocks, new tools. I've got a video coming out next week, for example, on website automation, which, while part of it focuses on WordPress, it's not specific to WordPress. I think it's a more of a broad view of why you'd want to take a look at automation and how you can use various different tools together in conjunction with each other to create massive, seamless, what would appear really complicated workflows that once you set them up, you don't have to think about them anymore. They're all going to just carry on behind the scenes. So yes, I will be creating more content on Bricks, but I will also still be creating content on other tools. I'll probably be covering Quickly when I take a look at that now with the Tailwind support. I don't want to be pigeonholed into being, I only cover one thing. I know some people say like, oh, well, it's better to focus on one specific tool. And that's fine. And some people enjoy doing that. They'll focus specifically on Elementor. I just kind of get bored. I just get bored with just using one piece of software all the time. I like to learn other things. Probably why there's been a spate of Bricks tutorials recently is because I've really dug into that. I've started taking a look at the ecosystem that's growing around it. Started building more sites and testing more things out for myself. I'm getting excited about it, which is why you'll probably see more content. And I think Imran will probably agree with this. That's why a lot of his videos recently have been about code snippets and using different code snippets, is because currently that's something he's got a passion for. And then we've got a little kind of group that talks about it, and different ones like Mark Harris, for example, that's got it sort of, is always dabbling inside there. And obviously there's Artif, who's involved with code snippets, the plugin. So there's always going to be an element, I think. You've got two kinds of people. You've got people that are they'll focus on something that's brings the most traffic in and potentially makes the most affiliate marketing sales. And you've got ones that just have a passion for it, and those are nice extras on top of it. But what they really are is passionate about showing you new technologies, new techniques, things to make your life easier. Like, for example, with the code snippets, it means a lot of these can be used and you don't need to have plugins installed. So you streamline your WordPress, you keep things simpler, and it doesn't have to cost you any money. So there's lots of reasons why. But yes, I will be covering it, but not to the exclusion of other things. Hope that answers the question anyway, Gershon. Daniel, question, what's the status with Elementor? Is it getting obsolete? I don't think it's getting obsolete. I think in certain respects, it's getting left behind. You know, when you take a look at some of the other tools out there and the way that they've, you know, sort of pushed forward, which is obviously easier when you have a smaller user base. Again, we've talked about this in the past. You know, a smaller user base, a more youthful product means that you can be much more agile. You can respond to feedback in the market and so on. You can push updates out quicker and easier because you're not going to potentially disrupt hundreds of thousands, if not millions of sites. But I don't think Elementor is going anywhere anytime soon. I think it will change. And I think we've talked about this before. I think they're pushing a lot more to go into the hosting market so they can have a hosted version of, you know, Elementor Pro. Whether that means that at some point they will drop Elementor as a plugin for WordPress, I don't see it in the imminent future, but there's a lifespan for every tool. You know, I think it's something like 3 to 5 years is the average lifespan for something when it comes to like online tools, like software. And as if you kind of consider how big Visual Composer was and consider where it is now, and if you look at Visual Composer and how that got so big, is because it was integrated into lots of themes that you bought from like Envato, and other places. And Elementor have definitely taken that approach. You know, they've been adopted into it, so they included in a lot of themes, a lot of starter sites, and so on. And that's absolutely helped them to get to that point of 14 million installs of the plugin. Although I think I've got at least 300,000 of those. So I see there's lots of pieces, and I think this is where when you look at some of the other tools like Breakdance, like Bricks, like maybe like Green Shift, like Quickly, and so on, I don't see those going down this route. Maybe Breakdance would like to get in that because we all know that they want a slice of the Elementor pie. So whether they go down that route, I don't know. But I honestly think that's the direction that Elementor want to go in because I think they have more control. They get that kind of walled garden approach. But obsolete, I don't see it anytime soon. I do see it declining, and I think we will see that, but I don't think we'll see it at any particular speed. You know, we're not going to see it like suddenly disappear overnight kind of thing. I think it's a long way to go before anything like that happens. Dorbe, what did I ask Thomas behind the scenes? Well, I can't tell you that. In all honesty, we didn't really sort of go through questions like that. Thomas was more a case of he was asking me, was there anything that I would like to see, you know, sort of changed in Bricks? Have I come across anything that doesn't work the way I expected to? Anything that kind of like bugs me and so on? And we talked about a few other things, you know, talk about doing another live stream. Hopefully that'll happen when version 2 comes out to sort of like let that be released, die down a little bit, handle, you know, that release, and then get together and do a live stream. So hopefully that'll be something that'll happen. But we just kind of just went through a few bits and pieces like that. There was nothing earth-shattering that we wouldn't have covered in the live stream anyway. It was more a case, like I say, of asking me questions and anything that I think could be improved in Bricks and things like that. So that's kind of where we were with it. Hopefully that's answers questions anyway. So anybody that's sort of popped in a little bit later now, if you've got any questions for me, just remember it's #Q for question. Just means that it's easier for me to find out what you're asking and to go through and, you know, quickly be able to sort of answer those questions and see those questions. Okay. Let's have a little look if you've got any questions and things in you that haven't been done like that. Salvatore, let's have a little look. Recently, I've shifted to a much more lightweight approach. Currently, my go-to is generate blocks and Blocksy on average, and make sure not to exceed 10 installed plugins. The thing I would always say when it comes to the number of plugins, I would say the number of plugins is less important than the quality of the plugins. You could have 10 really, really poorly coded plugins that could make your site slow and an absolute nightmare. And you could have 20 really well-coded plugins that would have no detrimental effect that would be noticeable on your website. So don't let the number of plugins be the influencing factor. The quality of the plugins is more important. That's what I would recommend anyway. But generate blocks and Blocksy, good combination. I'm curious though, why Blocksy and why not Generate Press if you're going to pair it up with Generate Blocks? Curious, let me know. But yeah, always consider the quality of the plugins that you install, not specifically the actual quantity. Dave, I've been interested in dynamic shortcodes. I'm assuming you're talking about the one from dynamic.000 from behind dynamic content for Elementor. No, there's not many tutorials out there. I think there's one that I think I've covered, and I think there's a couple of other ones. Yeah, I think there's been a couple of other ones that have been made. Nothing much out there. Um, Speaking to Giovanni, who's the kind of main guy behind it, we're always talking because I've covered dynamic content for Elementor multiple times in the past, working on a paid side of things and doing ones that I've done myself. Hopefully that is something that will change, because again, going back to what I said a little earlier on, dynamic shortcodes looks relatively simple, and it is relatively simple, but it can also get quite complex when you move past those basics. So I think, again, like I said, some good quality tutorials, some training material on that side of things would absolutely be invaluable, I think. So the fundamentals have kind of been covered. I covered a few of those in my video, and I know there's a couple of other videos up there that have done the similar kind of thing, the fundamentals. But definitely some more intermediate and advanced examples to show the power of what you can do with dynamic shortcodes. So absolutely. Maybe this is an area for you to sort of reach out to Giovanni and maybe, have a chat to him and maybe put some content together yourself. Because if there's one thing that I found is it's good to have your own niche when it comes to WordPress. For me, when I was sort of being very generic with everything originally, it was quite difficult to stand out. But once you kind of started going down the dynamic route, which wasn't really being covered that much at the time, there really weren't many people covering, ACF, Jet Engine, with WordPress and so on, definitely helped me. So maybe this is something to take a look at. And like I say, maybe reach out to Giovanni. If you'd like me to put you in touch, drop me a message on Facebook and I'll happily make an introduction between the two of you and you can have a conversation then if there's something you'd be interested in pursuing. Let me know. Like I said, drop me a message on Facebook. Happy to talk about it. Leonardo, what do you consider building your own software for WordPress? At this point in time, no, because just looking at the hassle that other people go through when it comes to their software, their plugins, themes, things like that, I don't really have the time and the energy and the headspace to get into something like that. But I'll never say never, but I haven't come across anything yet that I kind of think there's a gap in the market to make that better or to make that different, or there's just a gap in the market that isn't being served at this point in time. With over 50,000 plugins when it comes to, free plugins when it comes to WordPress, and God knows how many thousands are out there for paid versions. I kind of think lots of bases have covered, but if I came across something that really wasn't being served very well or was underserved, I might look into it. It would be a case of who would I actually reach out to? Maybe Artif? No. I'm pretty sure he's charging my Tesla at the moment. Sorry, it's just an inside joke. But yeah, at this point in time, I can't imagine that I would. But like I say, I'll never say never because we never know what might happen in a couple of years' time, a couple of months' time. God, even tomorrow maybe. I might come across something and go, that really is underserved and I need to create something for that, and then maybe take a look at doing something. I don't know. I'd like to see more tutorials on BricsForge if possible. They have a lack of documentation of tutorials around the internet. There's some interesting features, but no tutorials. I'm pretty sure Daniel, the guy behind BricsForge, is aware of this and is working on some more content to cover it. And I agree. I think this is the problem you have when you have very comprehensive and sometimes complex plugins. I know when I did the video with BricsForge for the front end forms, I was back and forth talking to Daniel to try and get my head around things to kind of make sure that I understood it so I could create a video to be able to get across how you did it. And I think there's definitely a need for more video content. Like I say, written content is fine, but video content is just so much easier to digest, because what might take you an hour to read and try to figure out, you could probably watch a 10-minute video and grasp in a lot more detail of what's being kind of conveyed in that video. But again, like I say, this isn't specific to Daniel now at all, to anybody in particular, but not everybody is cut out to do video tutorials. It's not everybody's comfort zone. It's not everybody's area of expertise. Some people are, especially when it comes to developers. Most developers are incredible at developing and writing code and being able to create amazing products, but ask them to demonstrate how to use it in a real world scenario in an understandable way. And I think that's the same as putting me in front of a sort of computer and going, right, there's VS Code. Now code me a plugin to do what something like Bricks Forge does. I'd be like, I have no idea what I'm doing. But yeah, it's a weak point, and I think this is something that I know myself and a couple of other creators have identified. And maybe this is something that, if we've got any developers in watching this now or on replay, and you want to reach out and you like to sort of talk about something like this, but creating content, let us know. It doesn't have to be me. If you want like Gutenberg side of things, you've got Jamie from Poodle Press, great educator. If you want something like that, reach out to people like that. Imran, you've got Jeffrey from Lightbox, Dave Foy. There's lots of amazing creators out there that I'm sure for the right products and the right collaborations could be an absolute investment that could be amazing for you and your business. And the same goes, like I say, if you're watching this on the catch-up thing, again, drop a comment in there. I regularly check the comments. Or reach out to me on Facebook. Let me know. Okay, I'm not sure what this is. Apologies for writing this. Not that I'm important. I understand that there are professionals and marketing influencers, etc., but questions from real people. I'm not really sure what you're talking about there. If you could clarify that. If it's a question, if you could clarify a little bit. I'm not quite sure what you mean there, but by all means, clarify on that, and I'll be happy to try and answer if I can. Gershon, no problem at all. How does Fluent Snippets compare to Code Snippets? I would say Fluent Snippets is much more stripped back. It's a much more basic plugin at this point in time. Code Snippets definitely has more. And obviously with Code Snippets, you've got Code Snippets Cloud, which means that you've got access to, thousands and more probably every single day. It's a well-established product. It's, the free version has been out for many, many years. The pro version came out, was it 2022, I think? If Artif is still in the audience, still on the chat, was it 22 or 23 you brought the pro version out? Either way, the pro version is relatively new and the cloud is also relatively new, but I would say it's a more feature-rich with a much better sort of backup when it comes to the cloud side of things. Fluent Snippets, if you want something really simple and free, it's going to do the job fine. But I say it's just a much simpler plugin. My favorite WordPress automation plugin is Uncanny Automator. Uncanny Automator is very good. I did try the Pro version a little while back, but I haven't tried the Pro for quite a while. I like Flowmatic. I also like the ability to not be reliant upon using WordPress. So, for example, if I've got a site that I don't want to be the kind of hub, but I still want to connect it to other things, then I'd use something like Pably Connect, Zapier, Make, something like that, an external service to WordPress, because I think it just gives you that peace of mind. The downside, well, I'll cover the downsides in the video when it's released next week. We'll just leave it there. Okay. What else do you have? Give me a piece of that pie. I have no idea what you're talking about there, Ruben. Okay. Bear with me, I'm just looking through to see what we've got. We've got a couple of questions. Let me go through and just see if I can find some of these questions a second. Okay, got a quick few. Ingvar, why Core Framework over ACSS? Just because it resonated with me a little better. I've got no negatives towards ACSS. If I'm honest, looking at it, there's certain things in there that I really wish were in Core Framework. I think the integration with Plaster definitely seems a little bit more expansive to what you have with Core Framework and their right-click option. But it was just a case that I tried ACSS and it's incredibly good. For some reason, Core Framework just resonated just a little better with me. And I find that in lots of things, and I think everybody's the same. Some people say, why Bricks over Breakdance? Why Breakdance over Elementor? Why, do you know what I mean? Why Gutenberg as opposed to working with a page builder? I think some tools just resonate with us a little better than other ones, and we just move forward with them quicker. And I kind of felt like there was less of a barrier there for me using Core Framework, just kind of slotted into the way that I think and the way that I work. Whereas ACSS, I kind of felt like I was just pushing against it. For me, like I say, there are tens of thousands of people out there that absolutely love ACSS, and I've got nothing bad to say about it. Like I say, just for me, Core Framework just resonated a little bit more. That's it. Daniel, what's your thoughts on Visual Composer? I don't really have any other than it had its day. And I know that Visual Composer moved over to become WP Bakery. So Visual Composer that we think of as Visual Composer is actually WP Bakery these days. And Visual Composer itself is a different product. But and I know there's a lot of users out there, but it doesn't get any kind of real coverage because I think nobody really, and I'm talking about, when I say nobody, this sounds like a sweeping, like everybody in WordPress doesn't consider it to be anything. I just think it's had its day. I really do. I think when you kind of look at what Bricks is doing, Breakdance is doing, and so on, they're just far superior to it. And the interface, God, the interface was bloody awful. If you've ever looked at it, if you've never seen Visual Composer, and I'm talking the new Visual Composer, not the original Visual Composer, all the icons down the left-hand side, they just all look like they come from completely different screens. It just looks awful. So for me, no, I would never go back to Visual Composer. Andrew, how are you doing, sir? Do you use any specific plugins, Rank Math, or other sources, Rank and Academy, Exposure Ninja, for SEO knowledge strategy? I'm working on SOP for myself and clients if they want it. I've never found myself to be particularly strong in SEO. I use SEO Press Pro, and I've used that for, I think, 4+ years. I've been a pro subscriber with it. And I find that does what I want to do. And if I'm honest, I think SEO has changed considerably to what it did if you went back, say, 10 years ago, where everything was about your meta tags and stuff, so on. Whereas these days, the biggest influencing factor, in my opinion, is absolutely the content on the page. Right content for human beings with good optimization for the keywords and things that you want, and you can rank for it. But I would never consider myself to be anything more than just a dabbler when it comes to SEO. And I've done okay, like, for example, the Learn Bricks Builder website, that ranks #1 or on the first page for quite a lot of different terms for bricks and things, which is always good. Actually beating some of my YouTube videos of the same topic, which is also quite good. So other than using like SEO Press and that's probably about it, to be honest. Yeah, I'm kind of a bit rubbish when it comes to SEO. Caleb, what would you recommend, Gutenberg or Bricks, for a developer who wants to start an agency on the side? I've been using Gutenberg, but I'm concerned about building more advanced sites with it. This probably comes down to you. If you want to stay close to core, so you have less chance of things breaking or changing in the future, then Gutenberg is obviously the way to go. But as you've highlighted, if you want to create more advanced sites, that becomes a little bit more difficult just by staying with Gutenberg Core or the block editor and full site editing and so on. It is improving, but it's not to the point, I don't think, where you can compare it to something like Bricks, where you can create far more advanced websites, especially when it comes to dynamic data or things like that. Then I would say Bricks is definitely where you want to go on that side of things. But like I say, if advanced is where you want to go, Gutenberg, I don't think is going to cut it for you at this point in time. Like I say, unless you use something like Quickly, but then you still added an abstraction layer on top of Gutenberg, same thing kind of goes. Although GreenShift is a little different. So maybe take a look at GreenShift, because while I haven't taken a look at it in a little while, that kind of integrates a little closer, I believe, with WordPress core. Whereas Quickly is a little bit more of an abstraction layer on top of Gutenberg itself, like your cadence blocks, like generate blocks and so on. So maybe take a look at GreenShift, because there's dynamic data support in there for quite a lot of dynamic options, and have a look. And like I say, if you want to stay closer to core, maybe take a look at a tool like that. But if you want what I would consider to be the most flexibility and the easy sort of speed in which you can deploy sites, build sites, especially with like a class first system, Bricks is what I would suggest and recommend. So hopefully that answers the question. Charlie, good question. Do you think there's a market for third-party written documentation, say on Bricks, etc.? I think there's probably a market for it, but I would question how big that market would be, because I honestly do think more people use video these days. You've got to kind of consider that. I mean, when I started, all my content was originally written content. When I come back from my education background, where I was teaching, all my content was written. And that's how my first website started. And then I moved over into Flash-based video and things like that. We won't go there, it just makes me sound old. But I think those days have kind of gone. I think we've gone past those kind of golden days of the written content. I think written content is better to back up video content, which again is the reason why if I go over to something like my Learn Bricks Builder site, it's why if you take a look at most of the tutorials now, they'll come with some form of written version. It might be a simplified version, like for example, this just kind of goes through what you're going to do, whereas some of them are a little bit more detailed. It'll kind of give you a step-by-step kind of guide to do things. So I think there's probably, yeah, I think you could spend a lot of time doing something and not a lot of people would actually come and watch it. Would read it. That's where I would probably go. Floyd, to be honest, I mentioned GreenShift a lot, only because GreenShift is picking up a lot of pace. I don't use it. I don't have any real experience of it, so I can't give you a informed decision on it. It's just I know, looking at it recently, where it just came up for some reason. I went back and had a little look and watched some content on it, and it does feel like it's actually trying to become more part of WordPress core than adding that abstraction layer that we are kind of used to with things like cadence blocks and with things like generate blocks and so on, that just, they sit on top. This is trying to integrate more in with it. And that's kind of why I say about it. How does it compare to bricks and breakdance? Honestly, I don't know. I would be lying if I said I did. But a lot of people do like it. So maybe take a look into it and take a look at what it offers and see if there's anything in there that you think is interesting, that would make you want to sort of dig in and take a little look at what it does. Okay, so that's the questions. I think I've answered the majority of those, if not all of those. So if I haven't, like I say, just remember #Q for any questions. Just makes my life a little bit easier. But as Dave Den says, yeah, video and podcast is easier to absorb than written content in most cases. I think written content is useful when you have code, or whether you have something like that you need to be able to sort of show and explain and then allow people to copy it if they want to. Whereas in video, obviously, that's a little bit more difficult because people can't copy what's on the screen. So I think, that's definitely the way to go. I would like to have the hybrid approach. Like I said, that's why I adopted that for various different pieces of content on the Learn Bricks Builder website. The hybrid approach, I think, is probably better. Okay. Anthony, best block theme. Again, debatable. I like Ollie. I think Ollie is a good theme. I like what they call the patterns in there. I think it's got some really, theme could be free, and Spectra, the block editor, is free, and there's a premium version for the pro version. But check those out. Check out Spectra 1 and also check out Ollie. My preference is I like Ollie. No problem at all, Caleb. Like I say, hope it helps. Hope it helps. When using a class-based approach in Bricks, is the website like that? Asking in terms of speed. It's going to have an impact on it, yes, but would it be a massive impact? I don't think it'll be massive, no, because it's just the CSS definitions, so I don't think that it's going to make a massively noticeable difference, unless, of course, you've got, thousands and thousands and thousands of them. But it's more about the speed in which you can make changes, you can update, you can build. Use a framework, for example, where you're class-based, everything is class-based there. And you'll find that once you get your head around that, something that might have taken you 10, 15 minutes to make a change might now take you 5 seconds, 10 seconds. So it's less about the impact it's going to have on file sizes, load times, and things like that, and more about the impact it's going to have upon you designing, developing, updating, making changes, especially if you're doing this as a business. If a client comes to you and says, Paul, can you make this change? And you've got 10 pages you've got to go through. And I've done this in the past where I didn't templatize, sort of sites, so I didn't have that ability at the time. It was a pain. And I've still got some legacy sites that I kind of feel like I'm just going to go back and rebuild it if they keep asking me to make changes, because I've got to go through 10 pages. Now consider where you take a template and you'd have like your headers and your footers. You can go into one file and make that change. Now consider a site that's got 1,000 pages on it and you want to change something, maybe 10 different definitions to completely change the look of something. You can literally go in, make the changes to that inside your class system, and you can have sweeping changes that change the entire site. Even the entire look of the site could be changed in probably 10 minutes, as opposed to changing all those templates and things like that. So from a front end side of things, I don't think it's going to make much of an impact. But from a productivity point of view, I think it's going to make a massive impact when you build sites using that class first system alongside templates and things. Again, hope that answered the question. But if you are getting value from today's live stream, come on, thumbs up. 36 thumbs up with nearly 90 people in here. I'm sure you can do better than that. Hit that thumbs up. Let's tell YouTube that you like this kind of content. Okay, I'm going to answer one or two more questions and I'm going to call it a day, because I'm conscious of the fact that this has been nearly an hour, which is insane that it's been going that long. Okay. Oscar, interesting question. If you had to give advice to a small agency, what tool would you recommend to start using as a builder and be alive in 5 years? Elementor, Bricks, other. I think 5 years is an incredibly long time when you consider. Let's take an example of Elementor. And this isn't to pick on them, but Elementor. Elementor's been going now for, I think, 6 years. So 6 years and another 5 years on top of that, 11 years. That's a heck of a long life cycle. So will we be seeing Elementor being the same kind of thing? Will it even be here in 5 years? Who can say? And if it is, will it be a cloud-based builder? Do you know what I mean? And the same thing goes for Bricks. I mean, Bricks, I was talking to Thomas in the live stream. He was developing that a couple of years before it actually launched. And we're coming up now to close on 2.5 years. So if you said that that's been in development, let's say 4, put it a little bit longer, let's say 4, 9 years? I don't know. But if I was an agency and I was advising them, I would probably have to ask the question, what types of clients do you have? What types of sites do you have? Do you give access to the clients to have access to the back end? If you do, to what level? Are you sort of like just keeping things really simple? You have Gutenberg access or maybe basic ACF access, so they just fill in the boxes? I don't think there's any one answer. I think for me personally, if it was a company that wanted to have maximum flexibility with less technical overhead, Bricks would be my choice. If you wanted to have something that's probably wider support at this point in time and is more established, then maybe Elementor. But it's going to come down to the actual tools they're going to use and the kind of clients that they work with. So I'm sorry that's not a really sort of definitive answer. I would choose X over Y. But there are so many variables in play there that I think I'd need to understand those to be able to give as reliable an answer as I could give today. Because that might change in a month's time. Okay. Stuart, do you think having written guides as companions to the videos is giving people the choice based on different learning styles and making tutorials more accessible? Yeah. You know, if you've got the time, I mean, David McCann is incredibly good at doing this. If you look at the WebTNG site, which again, another great creator, if you want lots of content on WordPress and dynamic content and things, check out WebTNG on YouTube and also the WebTNG website. But David does pretty comprehensive written content to go alongside the videos that he releases. For me, I don't do that. What I do is I'll use a combination of using a transcript of my video, which I'll run through ChatGPT to summarize it and take the content from my video and actually create a simplistic step-by-step tutorial or a guide or an outline. And then I will tweak that to make sure it's got everything in place that needs to be in place and so on. And that still takes me probably 35, 45 minutes to kind of do for a typical 5 to 10 minute video. Because it helps back up, especially when, like I say, you've got code and things like that. That's kind of useful. But yeah, in whatever format you do it, whether you go really comprehensive and you do a complete breakdown of the entire video that you've released, or you summarize it and include things like code snippets and help and tips and things like that, whatever you do, I think they do benefit. Like I say, that's the hybrid approach kind of thing to the tutorials. But like I say, I think in isolation, written content probably wouldn't be as successful in a lot of cases. And, you know, there's different kinds of content. People like blogs and so on. Just in general, especially when it comes to teaching and education, I think video is better. Right, okay. I'm going to answer one more question if I can. What have we got? Actually, no, I'm going to leave it there. Okay, actually, this one. Peter, do you think a single developer for a page builder might be a continuity risk for bigger projects? Yes and no. I mean, if you take a look at some of the things out there, like Quickly, for example, unless things have changed, it's still Louis that is the person behind Quickly Builder itself. Obviously, if something ever happened to that person, they fall ill, they lose interest in the project, whatever, absolutely, you can definitely go down the wrong path. You lose access to it or whatever it is, no updates and things like that, which could be a problem. But bigger projects can still fail as well. We have to bear that in mind. But if they fail or there's issues, there's more potential to get those fixed than there are with a one-man band kind of thing. So obviously there's a risk in there, absolutely a risk in there. But if we don't put our faith in people that are maybe just a one-man project or one-woman project to start off with, and give them the opportunity to grow and help support them by buying their products, excuse me, they're never going to get to the point where they can take on 2, 3, 4, 5 more people, speed up development, help with support and things like that. So we have to kind of consider, lots of projects start out as one person and then they grow. So that would be my take. But on bigger projects, yeah, I think if you've got a project, let's say, for example, let's say you've got a project worth 50 grand, 100 grand, 200 grand. Would I be using a one-man based plugin to build that around? No. Then I think the risk definitely becomes a little too high. For more realistic projects, for what most of us would be involved in, or just smaller projects as in scope, that meant that if something happened further down the line, you could change systems over, maybe even behind the scenes. I mean, I've done that. Behind the scenes, so the client never even knows, but you then can move over to something else. And especially with, like I say, if you were dealing with things like template systems, integrating Gutenberg into your sort of content strategy, using CSS frameworks and so on, you could change even sites with like 1,000 posts on it. There's probably not that many actual core files that you would need to change to move from one system to another without affecting that content. Only when you start using that, let's just say that page builder, wherever it is, to create the physical content of all of those pages, does it become an issue. And then, like I say, you've got to consider your strategy then for how you build the site. Okay, I'm going to answer one more question because it's a quick one. Shanwell, 1366 or 1280, what's the best width? I don't think it's the best width. I think you need to look at your statistics if you've got an established site and see what your average or your biggest user base is. For me personally, I would go 1366. But just remember, you can have multiple breakpoints. So you could very easily put a max width in there and have different breakpoints to make sure that you cater for the different sizes. It's just a case of you don't really want to go past that sort of 1400 pixels when you've got your margins and things like that on there for the average, especially when it's text heavy, because then your line lengths potentially become too long. There's lots of factors. But for me personally, 1366 is what I would use because more people are using more high resolution devices. But always, and this is one thing I've told people a lot when they say, like, do I do mobile first design and so on? If you've got a site that's already been up there and been up there for a little while, check the statistics. You can see what is the most popular devices, resolutions, operating systems, all those kinds of things. And then you can make a more informed decision, which is the best way to approach it, whether you go for a wider layout, whether you go for mobile first design, those types of things. Anyway, hopefully that answered that question. And I'm going to wrap things up here. I want to say again, thank you very much. It's a Friday afternoon for me and a Friday at some point for most of you. I want to say thank you very much for taking an hour out of your day to join into the live stream, to ask me questions, to get involved in the chat, get involved in everything else. Sorry. Watching your video depict as co-founder. Oh, thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed it. Yeah, thank you very much for taking the time out of your day to join in. Thanks for getting involved in the conversation. I'll be back next week. I'll probably be doing a couple of live streams next week. Maybe I'll even get Imran on if he's around. And hopefully I've answered several of your questions today. Brendan O'Connell, there's another guy you want to go and check out on YouTube as well, doing some great things for bricks and so on. So go and check out Brendan O'Connell's channel on YouTube, and Dave Den and Sam. Go and check those channels out. Give them some support. Give them a thumbs up. Watch their videos. Help spread the word. Anyway, take care. Enjoy the rest of your Friday. Enjoy your weekend. Stay safe wherever you are. I will catch up with you next week. Take care.